Hi everyone in the world of cloud computing, and welcome to episode 7 of the Cloud Computing Show with Brad Nelson and the world's #1 cloud industry expert and thought leader, David Linthicum. This week's show is sponsored by Nelson Hilliard, cloud computing recruitment specialists, placing great people in cloud, IoT, fintech and AI. In this week's show, we'll be talking about the global data center traffic and how it's expected to hit 8.6 zettabytes or 1 trillion gigabytes, and will Australia become the largest data center location for the Asia Pacific? Hi Dave, great to see you again. How you been?
It's been awesome, Brad. It's great to see you too. This is a great topic because this is near and dear to my heart because I live in the land of data centers everywhere. So living in Northern Virginia, near Ashburn, Virginia, Amazon's here, Google's here, everybody's here, and that's we have a big bundle of fiber and lots of cheap power that data centers can take advantage of. And I think you guys are poised to be really the next Ashburn, Virginia. I don't know if you know that or not, but ultimately I think that the majority of data centers are going to be built in Australia, number one, because the cost of power is low, the cost of labor is reasonable, and it's just a good place to do business. And what that means is that you're going to see lots of 3-story windowless buildings with generators outside and Fort Knox kind of wire around them, and you're going to have Google there and Amazon there. They're there already, but you're going to get other data centers that are supporting them. Equinix, all these basically these data providers, which are really going to build these very ominous structures that are going to provide information to Asia Pac, which by the way is just exploding right now in the use of the cloud. So you got to ask yourself, do you want those things around? And if you do you think it's going to have a positive impact on Australia? And since you're there, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, you're right. There's already noticeably some large warehouse type buildings appearing in the sort of outer suburbs of Australia, or sorry, Melbourne, where I'm based. And if you go sort of more towards the southeast, there's a huge Amazon headquarters there as well, or distribution centre for Australia. I think that's one of the first ones anyway, certainly for the southeast Australia. And I think you've got there's a 32% compound growth over the next 5 years in the Australian area for web data traffic, isn't that right?
Yeah, it's huge, and you got to have the servers and the bandwidth to accommodate it. Well, the thing is with data centers, they're kind of funny, and I get these questions all the time from the press, because even though they're these big high-tech buildings that you think would basically employ thousands of people to run around and work these data centers. The reality is they probably need a couple of dozen people at a time in shift work in order to make them happen. So even though they take up a lot of space, they eat up a lot of power, they make a big environmental impact, and of course we could argue the replacement of cloud-based systems, things like that, but they're huge. Ultimately, are these good for the local economy? Are these good for the local employment market? And I think that's kind of where the question comes. But I think the reality is that unless Australia runs to push this back, which I don't think they will, you guys are going to be the data center capital of the lower half of the world. And so all the data center traffic, all the data traffic and the cloud traffic is going to run through Melbourne and Sydney. So you guys ready for that? You ready to be kind of the ground zero for where information is flowing in? Because I'm sitting there right now, and so welcome to the party.
I think you're right. We've certainly got the space for these data centers, and I think when it comes to energy, solar is a massive thing down here as well. Just the amount of sun we have, and also obviously Elon Musk has launched his Tesla battery, I believe, in Adelaide as well. So we have battery power, we have solar, so we have all the means for cost-effective green energy to power these sites, which is very appealing from a global point of view, not only just for APAC, but certainly supporting China's massive growth into Australia, as well as Malaysia, Singapore, etc. And there was a Singapore startup called AirTrunk, which has just raised $400 million from Goldman Sachs, the private equity group, which is funding the construction of more centres in Sydney and Melbourne. So there really is a huge amount of growth this way.
So you're going to see data centers whether you like it or not. You got a lot of money in there that's basically backing them up. I think it's a good thing for Melbourne and Sydney, Australia in general. However, living in Data Center Central, or what we call Data Center Alley here in Northern Virginia, I think you need to really kind of manage the growth and make sure that the people who build these things are leveraging clean energy, are taking care of their citizens, are working well with the employees, and are in essence having a positive impact on the economy, which I think they will. I think ultimately this is about not only just data centers, but if you bring in cloud-based systems, you have consultants, and you have customer service, and you have technicians, and all the people I'm sure you'll be interviewing and hiring, for big companies. And I think that it ultimately needs to be something that you look at going forward as something that's positive. But it's still a bit scary, knowing how beautiful Australia is, that these things are going to start, popping up on the skyline. And so my advice is welcome with open arms, but make sure you manage these guys and make sure they do the right things with the people and the right things with the environment and the right things with the economy. But other than that, it seems like a positive step.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Aesthetically, they don't look the most pleasing of structures, do they? We'd like to think that an architect's going to come in at some point and realise that this is going to be what can you say, a necessity for the way life's going forward and the embracing of such technology, that you'd like to think that an architect's going to come up with a better design than, like you say, a 3-story building with 2 or 3 windows and the rest is just a grey box or something in the middle of this beautiful desert.
Yeah, there's no windows here. I can spot them a mile away. And it's kind of funny, where in Northern Virginia, it's a dairy farm, winery, data center, data center, data center, dairy farm, winery, data center, perhaps a distillery mixed in. It's really kind of a weird, eclectic environment. And people don't seem to notice it. And I think people are pushing back on it right now. They're not letting as many data centers come in. But the reality is, I think it does have, the ability to kind of drive interest in a lot of cloud-based companies being here. And also, if you build a tech-centered economy where you are, I think ultimately that's going to be beneficial for Melbourne, Sydney, and Australia. But you guys ready to be the next Silicon Valley south of the hemisphere? Is this something that you're going to embrace, or is this something that's going to freak everybody out down there?
Oh, I think Australia is ready to embrace most things. A lot of Australians within the tech world, travel all over the world to embrace what's coming, what's going on. Certainly at the AWS reInvent last month. And essentially bringing things back and moving things on. Australia does seem to be at the forefront of a lot of emerging technologies, which is always very encouraging. And there's a lot of investment groups in Australia putting a lot of money into the banking, into the finance side of things, along with blockchain. Good old blockchain rears its head again. And obviously with the ASX as well, embracing blockchain and moving out away from their chess platform. So I think Australia does like to embrace. I think it will embrace. It has to embrace. It has to be there, and it has to be one of the leading edges in technology, like you've said already. Australia is one of the largest and fastest growing cloud markets that sort of held back from going forward. But now it's chomping at the bit to move and moving at great speed. So I think it's we very much are ready for embracing more and more technologies, and because of that, data centers are the necessary evil, as it were, that unfortunately will probably blemish the landscape. Although I've just thought of a great idea. If someone can think of some way of doing 3D vinyl, then there could be someone who could take a photograph of the landscape they're about to destroy before they destroy it, and then actually print the vinyl and stick it to the side of the buildings.
Or paint the damn things. I mean, they're ugly buildings. They don't have to be. And so I never really kind of get over that you can see when they put them up, they just put concrete walls and no windows, and no architects were ever involved in it. It's like cost savings. And the reality is, I think that we need to kind of put in the work to make sure that this kind of layers into the environment, into the landscape, and we do kind of the architectural things that you should do, when you build it. It won't be that ugly. So you guys can lead the way in that and teach us Americans how to make that happen.
That sounds like a great idea. Dave, thanks for being part of the show this week. Really great to have you on.
Happy to be here, man. Watch those data centers.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Dave. Thanks a lot. Well, thanks for watching, folks, and I really hope you enjoyed this week's Australia show. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe so you don't miss out on our weekly shows, and also for the weekly news that I do. You can catch David on Twitter, which is @David Linthicum, and I'm on Twitter too, which is @Nelson_Hilliard. Thanks again for watching.